Have you ever heard of a puzzle so twisted, so terrifying that solving it meant losing yourself? Some cases crawl under your skin, refuse to let go. This was one of those. It wasn't just about catching a killer. It was about understanding the mind behind the madness. The phone rang, slicing through the silence of my dimly lit office. I rubbed my temples and picked up, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "Detective Cross." "Another one," came the grim reply. It was Captain Reeves. His voice carried that weighted tone, the one he only used when things were bad. I grabbed my coat. "Where?" "South Side, basement of an abandoned house." I clicked off the call and headed out, the cold Chicago air biting through my jacket as I stepped into the night. The streets were empty, the city asleep, except for those of us chasing shadows. The crime scene was already swarming with uniforms when I arrived. Yellow tape blocked the entrance, but the real horror waited inside. I took a deep breath and stepped past the threshold, the air thick with something putrid. Death had a scent, and once it found you, it never really left. The basement was worse than I imagined. The stench hit me first, sickly sweet, unmistakable. I gagged but pushed forward, my eyes scanning the walls. Dozens of Polaroids covered every inch, each one a missing person, each one with the same eerie mark, puzzle pieces carved into their skin. A lump formed in my throat as I stepped closer. My foot brushed against something soft. I looked down. A severed hand. Fresh. The blood still glistened under the dim light. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to keep looking. "Detective," one of the officers called. "You need to see this." I turned, following his gaze. In the far corner of the basement, a message was scrawled on the concrete wall in blood. "You're getting warmer." My pulse pounded in my ears. The killer wasn't just leaving clues, he was playing a game. Captain Reeves stepped beside me, his face carved from stone. "This makes 5 victims in 3 months. 5 victims. 5 puzzle pieces. And now, a message directed at me. I clenched my fists. "We need to find this guy. Fast." Reeves nodded. "We will. But Cross, be careful." I didn't respond. Instead, I turned back to the wall, my mind already racing. The killer was watching. Waiting. And if I wasn't careful, the next puzzle piece wouldn't belong to a stranger. It would belong to me. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the blood-streaked words on the wall. The room around me faded into background noise. The low murmur of officers, the click of a camera flash, the shuffle of boots against the damp concrete. My mind was working, piecing together fragments of an unfinished picture. Who was this killer? Why puzzle pieces? And why was I the one getting warmer? I turned to Officer Riley, one of the first responders on the scene. "Anything else? Any signs of forced entry?" Riley shook his head. The front door was unlocked when we arrived. No signs of a struggle. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Knew what they were doing. I exhaled sharply. That was the worst kind of predator. The patient kind. The kind who planned every move with surgical precision. "The victim?" I asked, already bracing for the answer. "Male, mid-30s. No ID on him, but we ran his fingerprints. His name's Mark Holloway, reported missing 2 weeks ago." 2 weeks. That meant the killer had kept him alive for a while. Had he been torturing him, waiting for the right moment to strike? The thought made my stomach churn. I turned back to the wall of Polaroids. Faces stared back at me, their eyes frozen in time. I traced a finger over one, a young woman, her face pale and haunted. "Are these all confirmed missing persons?" I asked. Riley nodded. "We've matched a few already, still running the rest." Captain Reeves reappeared at my side. "We need to talk, Cross." I followed him up the stairs and out into the cold night air. The flashing red and blue lights bathed the street in an eerie glow. Reeves lit a cigarette, took a long drag, then exhaled slowly. "This guy isn't just killing for fun," he said, voice low. "He's building something. A message. I frowned. What kind of message? Reeves hesitated, then handed me a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a single puzzle piece coated in fresh blood. We found this near the victim's body, he said. And that's not the worst part. I looked at him, waiting. There was a note attached to it, he continued. Addressed to you. A cold weight settled in my chest as I took the bag from him, my fingers trembling slightly. The killer wasn't just watching, he was calling me out, and I had no choice but to answer. The note was simple, scrawled in a hurried hand. Do you see the pattern yet? I sat at my desk hours later staring at it, tracing the letters with my fingertips. It was taunting me, daring me to put the pieces together. Holloway wasn't just another victim, he was chosen, but why? I flipped through the case files, noting dates, locations, and backgrounds of the previous victims. There had to be something, some common thread tying them together. Then I saw it. Every victim had reported a missing loved one in the past 2 years. Brothers, sisters, spouses. Some were still missing. Others had been found dead. The killer wasn't just choosing random targets. He was hunting people connected to past unsolved cases. The realization sent a chill through me. He was punishing those who had lost someone. But why? I reached for my phone and dialed Riley. We need a list of all open missing persons cases from the past 2 years. Cross-check them with every victim so far. Riley didn't hesitate. On it. I hung up, rubbing my eyes. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was one of something deeper, something more personal. And as I stared at the message again, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a case anymore. This was personal, for both of us. The morning light crept through my blinds, casting long shadows across my desk. I hadn't slept. The note still sat in front of me, the words burned into my mind. Do you see the pattern yet? It was a challenge, a dare, and I couldn't ignore it. A knock on my door jolted me back to the present. Reeves stepped in, a folder in hand. We ran the cross-check you asked for, he said, tossing it onto my desk. You were right. Every victim had a connection to an unsolved case. But there's more. I flipped open the folder, scanning the names. My breath caught. One of the names stood out, a name I knew all too well. My own brother. The killer wasn't just targeting random people. He was coming for me. My brother Alex had disappeared 2 years ago. No note, no trace, nothing. The case had gone cold, and I had buried the pain deep inside, focusing on my work instead. But now it was all rushing back. I stared at the folder, my hands shaking. The killer had chosen victims connected to unsolved cases, and Alex's disappearance was one of them. Was this a coincidence? Or was the killer sending me a message? I grabbed my coat and headed out, my mind racing. I needed to see the files from Alex's case. Maybe there was something I had missed, something that could connect him to the killer. The precinct was quiet when I arrived, the early morning light filtering through the windows. I made my way to the records room, pulling out the dusty box labeled Cross Alex. I opened it, my heart pounding. Inside were photos, reports, and notes from the investigation. I spread them out on the table, my eyes scanning every detail. Then I saw it. A Polaroid photo tucked away at the bottom of the box. It was Alex, his face pale and scared. And on his arm, carved into his skin, was a puzzle piece. My stomach dropped. The killer had taken Alex. And now, he was using him to taunt me. I clenched my fists, my mind racing. The killer wasn't just playing a game. He was trying to break me, and he was succeeding. I sat in the records room for hours, poring over every detail of Alex's case. The puzzle piece on his arm was the same as the ones on the victims. The killer had been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. But why now? What had changed? I reached for my phone and dialed Riley. I need you to look into something for me, I said, my voice tight. Check if there have been any recent developments in the unsolved cases connected to the victims. Anything at all. Riley didn't ask questions. I'll get right on it. I hung up, my mind racing. The killer was meticulous, patient. He wouldn't have started now without a reason. There had to be a trigger, something that had set him off. I flipped through the files again, my eyes landing on a name I hadn't noticed before. Sarah Holloway, Mark Holloway's sister. She had gone missing a year before Alex, and her case had also gone cold. But there was something else. A note in the margin, scribbled in my own handwriting. Connected. I frowned. Had I seen a connection back then? Something I had forgotten? I reached for my phone again, this time dialing Captain Reeves. I need to see the Holloway case files, I said. All of them. Reeves didn't hesitate. I'll have them sent over. I hung up, my mind racing. The pieces were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was one of something darker, more twisted than I had imagined. And as I stared at the photo of Alex, I knew one thing for certain. The killer wasn't just playing a game. He was telling a story, and I was the final chapter. The Holloway case files arrived an hour later, and I spread them out on the table next to Alex's. I scanned through the reports, my eyes landing on a familiar name. Dr. Evelyn Hart. She had been the lead investigator on Sarah Holloway's case just as she had been on Alex's, and now she was retired, living quietly on the outskirts of the city. I grabbed my coat and headed out, my mind racing. If anyone knew the connection between the cases, it was her. The drive to Dr. Hart's house was a blur, my thoughts consumed by the puzzle pieces and the killer's twisted game. I pulled up to her house, a small, quiet place surrounded by trees. I knocked on the door, and after a moment it opened. Dr. Hart stood there, her eyes widening in surprise. "Detective Cross," she said. "What are you doing here?" "I need your help," I said, my voice tight. "It's about the Holloway case, and my brother." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." I followed her into the living room, my eyes scanning the photos on the walls. They were all of her with various law enforcement officials, awards and commendations lining the shelves. "What's this about?" she asked, sitting down. I handed her the files. "There's a connection between the Holloway case and my brother's disappearance. And now there's a killer using puzzle pieces to taunt me." She frowned, flipping through the files. Then her eyes widened. "Oh my God. What is it?" I asked, my heart pounding. She looked up at me, her face pale. There was a suspect in Sarah's case, a man named Victor Kane. He was never charged, but we always suspected him. And now? "Now what?" I asked, my voice tight. She handed me a photo. It was of Victor Kane, his face cold and emotionless, and on his arm, barely visible, was a tattoo of a puzzle piece. My stomach dropped. The killer had been right under our noses the whole time, and now he was coming for me. I left Dr. Hart's house, my mind racing. Victor Kane was the killer. He had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. But why now? What had changed? I reached for my phone and dialed Riley. "I need you to find everything you can on Victor Kane," I said. "And I mean everything." Riley didn't hesitate. "I'll get right on it." I hung up, my mind racing. The killer had been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, he was coming for me. I drove back to the precinct, my hands tight on the wheel. The pieces were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was one of something darker, more twisted than I had imagined. When I arrived, Riley was waiting for me. "I found something," he said, his voice tight. Victor Kane was released from prison 6 months ago. He served time for assault, but there were rumors he was involved in something bigger. I frowned. "What kind of rumors?" Riley hesitated. "They say he was part of a cult, one that believed in sacrifice and puzzles." My stomach dropped. The killer wasn't just a murderer. He was part of something bigger, something more dangerous. And now, he was coming for me. I sat at my desk staring at the photo of Victor Kane. The puzzle piece tattoo on his arm was unmistakable. He was the killer, and now he was coming for me. I reached for my phone and dialed Captain Reeves. "I need a team," I said. "We're going after Victor Kane." Reeves didn't hesitate. "I'll assemble them now." I hung up, my mind racing. The killer had been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now he was coming for me. I grabbed my coat and headed out, my heart pounding. The team was already assembled when I arrived, their faces grim. "We're going to Kane's last known address," I said. "Be ready for anything." We drove in silence, the tension thick in the air. When we arrived, the house was dark, the windows boarded up. I stepped out of the car, my hand on my gun. "Let's move." We approached the house, our footsteps silent on the gravel. I kicked in the door, the team rushing in behind me. The house was empty, the walls covered in Polaroids and puzzle pieces, and in the center of the room, scrawled on the floor in blood, was a message. "You're getting warmer." My stomach dropped. The killer wasn't here. He was somewhere else, waiting for me. And then my phone rang. I answered, my voice tight. "Cross." "Detective," came the cold, emotionless voice. "You're close, but not close enough." "Where are you?" I demanded. The killer chuckled. "You'll see. But first you have to solve the puzzle." And then the line went dead. I stood in the empty house, my mind racing. The killer was playing a game, and I was the final piece. The walls around me were covered in Polaroids of victims, each one marked with a puzzle piece carved into their skin. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the message on the floor, "You're getting warmer," taunted me. My phone buzzed again. It was Riley. "I tracked the call," he said, his voice tense. "It's coming from an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. But Cross, be careful. This feels like a trap." "I know," I replied, my voice steady. "But I don't have a choice." I gathered the team and briefed them quickly. We didn't have time to waste. The killer was waiting, and every second counted. As we drove to the warehouse, my mind kept circling back to Alex. My brother's face haunted me, his fear etched into my memory. This wasn't just about catching a killer anymore. It was about saving myself, and maybe, just maybe, finding closure. The warehouse loomed ahead, its broken windows and rusted walls a testament to years of neglect. We approached cautiously, weapons drawn. The silence was deafening, broken only by the crunch of gravel under our boots. Inside, the warehouse was dark, the only light coming from a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Beneath it stood Victor Kane, his back to us. He turned slowly, a cold smile spreading across his face. "Detective Cross," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "I've been waiting for you." "Where's Alex?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. Kane tilted his head, his eyes gleaming. "Oh, he's here. But first you have to solve the puzzle." He gestured to a table in the center of the room. On it was a jigsaw puzzle partially completed. The missing pieces were scattered around the table, each one stained with blood. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. The puzzle was a map of the city, with certain locations marked. One of them was the warehouse we were in, another was my childhood home, and the final piece, the one I was holding, fit into a spot near the river. Kane watched me, his smile widening. "You see it now, don't you? The pattern, the connection." I stared at the puzzle, my mind racing. The locations were all places tied to the victims, and to me. The killer had been leading me here all along. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Kane's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold fury. "Because you took something from me. Years ago, you arrested my brother. He died in prison. This is my revenge." I froze. His brother. I remembered the case. A small-time crook who'd gotten caught in the crossfire of a bigger investigation. He'd been innocent, but I hadn't known that at the time. "This isn't justice," I said, my voice firm. "This is madness." Kane laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Maybe, but it's my madness, and now it's your turn to suffer." He reached behind him and pulled out a knife, its blade glinting in the dim light. "Finish the puzzle, detective, or your brother dies." I glanced at the puzzle, then at Kane. There was no way out of this. I had to play his game. I placed the final piece into the puzzle, completing the map. As soon as I did, a loud click echoed through the warehouse. A door on the far side of the room creaked open, revealing a small, dark room. Kane gestured toward it. "Go on, he's waiting." I stepped inside, my heart in my throat. The room was empty except for a single chair, and sitting in it, bound and gagged, was Alex, my brother. I rushed to him, my hands trembling as I untied the ropes. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with fear and relief. "Ethan," he whispered, "I knew you'd come." Before I could respond, the door slammed shut behind us. Kane's voice echoed through the room. "Congratulations, detective. You solved the puzzle. But the game isn't over yet." I turned to the door, my fists clenched. "Kane, let us go." His laughter filled the room. "Oh, I will. But first you have to face the final piece." The floor beneath us began to shake and the walls started to close in. Kane had rigged the room to collapse. "Ethan," Alex said, his voice panicked. "What do we do?" I looked around, searching for a way out. There was none. The room was a death trap. But then I remembered the puzzle. The final piece had been placed near the river. If Kane had followed the same pattern, there had to be a way out. I grabbed Alex's arm. "Follow me." We ran to the far wall where a small vent was hidden behind a stack of crates. I pried it open, revealing a narrow tunnel. "Go!" I shouted, pushing Alex inside. We crawled through the tunnel, the walls of the room collapsing behind us. The sound of crashing concrete filled the air, but we didn't stop. We couldn't. Finally, we emerged into the cool night air, the river glistening in the moonlight. The warehouse was gone, reduced to rubble. Alex collapsed onto the ground, breathing heavily. "Ethan, I thought I was going to die." I knelt beside him, my own heart racing. "You're safe now. It's over." But as I looked back at the ruins of the warehouse, I knew it wasn't over. Kane was still out there somewhere, and he wasn't done with me. The case was closed, but the scars remained. Alex was safe, but the memories of what had happened haunted us both. The killer's puzzle had been solved, but the final piece, the one that tied everything together, was still missing. I sat in my office, staring at the photo of Victor Kane. His cold eyes seemed to stare back at me, taunting me. Some puzzles are meant to remain unsolved, and some games never truly end. But for now, I had my brother back, and that was enough.